Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tiger Claw Radio episode 174, on the air since 2009. Your favorite non-FCC compliant source for video game talk podcasting. Alright guys, so it's been a while since the last one of these. A few key events have happened that I want to go over. Okay, one key event specifically. MAGfest 2017 is come and gone. We're going to talk about that. I have since fallen in love with Street Fighter V, and I liked it a lot more than I thought it would. Going to talk about that a little bit. Briefly want to touch on the Nintendo Switch, but not too much. I mean, you guys who know me know that the Switch is not going to be my thing, but there have been some reveals about the Switch in recent times that I think are worth talking about. So let's get right into it. We got a couple format changes. This is the first episode in 8 years that is being made primarily to be broadcast over YouTube and then syndicated to Podomatic. So head over to youtube.com/TigerClawTV or /user/TigerClawTV and stay up on the latest podcasts. And there will be links so you can get the MP3s and whatnot. Okay, so MAGfest came around, and it was a little earlier this year than last year, and it was cold. It was cold. Took a little bit of video, so I'll have something up to watch eventually. Yeah, it's funny because when I go to MAGfest, I go with one other person, and we usually do we do a lot of arcade, and we do a lot of games in the room, which is a really important part of a convention of MAGfest for us. It's just me and my friend from childhood checking stuff out, and then and that's it. We don't really party very hard, but a couple things that I saw. I mean, I went to the arcade at 3 in the morning, and I saw there was a rave going on in one of the jam spaces, and that was pretty cool, and there was a lot of people dressed up and stuff, and that was kind of neat. Played some games. I got to play all the way through Golden Axe on like a Raspberry Pi that was built into this two-person arcade stick made out of marble, which was really cool. Sad thing about that, though, is it had Dodonpachi in it, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 different iterations of Dodonpachi, which is a game I discovered last year at MAGfest and have fallen in love with since. But the problem was, since it was a Raspberry Pi and running MAME, if you ran Dodonpachi, which is a Tate mode game, it played sideways, so I couldn't play it, and it kind of sucked. Did get to play one of those Dodonpachi games at on a Candy Cab, which was amazing. I got to play a 2-player with my pal Angie. Truly a good time. A couple of the notable things that happened at MAGfest. They had a light gun gallery. All right, so there was like a shooting gallery in the console room that had several light gun games set up. A good amount of them didn't work. Like there was like a Sega Saturn with some sort of weird light gun, and there was a Dreamcast. Most notably, there was an NES that had Hogan's Alley set up. So I got to play a little Hogan's Alley, which was amazing. So when MAGfest was all said and done, and I got home, I set up my old Nintendo to my CRT or CRTV, my old tube TV, which is not a big TV but big enough, and I got to play some Duck Hunt. So from that, I derived the fact that I need to get my hands on a copy of Hogan's Alley. Yeah, so notes for MAGfest. Vinyl records were a thing. I picked up a couple of Proto Men vinyl records. I got the 12-inch single from Act 3, which is it's a 12-inch, but it's also a single because the songs are 7+ minutes on it, which is a great record. And I also got the Cover Up, which is a double record set of the Proto Men playing 80s cover songs, and they did a really good job. My wife in particular likes that a lot. I got a record from the Bit Brigade playing the Mega Man 2 soundtrack, and they did a beautiful blue vinyl record, which is great because one side on that record has 17 songs, because they do the like metal covers of the Mega Man 2 tracks, but they're Nintendo songs, and they don't play the loop more than once. They play the loop one time and they move on. So if you look at the side of the record, it's split like more times I think than I've ever seen on a single piece of vinyl. So I got those 3 records, pretty cool, and those purchases I made at MAGfest got me back into collecting vinyl records, which I haven't been in a very long time. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of sad, since I made the move to YouTube, I won't really be playing. I have to be mindful of the way the YouTube footprint, like thumbprint for detecting music works, so I won't be able to just play tracks here, which is unfortunate, because I think this would be a good time to play some Bad Brains. It's something I've derived from MAGfest. The only other thing I think that came from MAGfest was I bought a fight pad. And we're going to lead into talking about Street Fighter V. So Street Fighter V came out last year, and I got to play that at MAGfest last year when it was brand new. And you guys might remember that when that game launched, there was not much to it at the time. There was like versus mode, and that's it. There was no real arcade mode, but you could play online, but that wasn't really enough. And people were saying the mechanics are really good, but there's not enough content here. Well, I just got that game before MAGfest. Getting it a year late, I think, turned out to be a good plan, because by now there was lots of content to play. There's a story mode. They've had a chance to roll out some extra characters. It went on sale, so I was able to buy the complete package, all the available characters at this time, for about $50, which was cool. I was shocked at how much DLC is available even after buying the deluxe edition. Usually you think, like, they use the word season pass. Usually you think of season passes as all the DLC that is available at that year. But this is Capcom, modern day Capcom. So even with the deluxe edition, even with 2 season passes, there's still costumes and stages and stuff you got to chalk up that whole cold hard cash for. So that was a bit I want to say it was disappointing, but I don't know. I got over it quickly because it's Capcom. So part of me was like, dude, what are you expecting? Did you really expect to be able to buy this entire game for less than $200? And I think it was a bit worse because I was trying to set up my computer. I brought my tower with me so that I could sit in the hotel room and play Street Fighter with my friend. So I was setting up my rig so that it would be the party machine, right? So typically, if you're playing Street Fighter on Steam, then you can cough up DLC cash for like the one character that you want to main, and that's it. I mean, that you're gonna play online with people, that's fine. If they want other characters, they can buy them. But this was a party rig, so it was important to me to have all the characters unlocked. So I did that. And I had been playing. I played competitively enough to the point where I gave up trying a stick. I use an arcade stick, but I had finally admitted to myself that I'm just not cut out to use an arcade stick in my fighting games. I love it for shmups, but I kind of hung it up. I was like, my lifelong fighting game rival, Angie, if I'm ever going to have a shot against this guy, I have to play to my strengths, which means I had to use a pad. So when I was at MAGfest, I bought a fighting pad, or a fight pad, which is a concept. The idea of a fight pad, those words, was not something I was familiar with until recently. So basically what it is a solidly built gamepad with no with no analog sticks, big fat buttons for your thumbs, and in button layout it resembles the 6-button Genesis controller, wherein the rightmost 2 buttons are copies of the shoulder buttons. So you can hit those shoulder buttons without having to do the shoulder. You can hit them with your thumb and not your finger. So I've been doing okay in terms of Street Fighter with that. I started maining Chun-Li and I was getting my butt handed to me. Then I started maining Mika, who is a bit more of a brawler. You can be a little bit sloppier with Mika and it works, whereas Chun-Li requires much more precision. And it's been a good time. I did very well at the beginning against my friend, and then the last couple times I played, I've just been brutal losses. Like, oh man, brutal losses. To the point where, like, I'm having like crybaby fits after playing that game. When I sit down and play 5 matches, and I don't win a single one of them, or I go 1-4 or something, I have a hard time with that. And I think it might just be because I haven't been part of the fighting game community for very long. And it's weird because I thought it would be the other way. I mean, I played enough Counter-Strike to know how to deal with losses. But in Counter-Strike, you'll sit down and play for 3 hours, and you'll have 2 losses, and that's it. That's your 2. So I thought, hey, man, Street Fighter will be easier because I can take losses. I can take a few losses, and it'll only take like 30 minutes. But no, I found after that time, I'm ready to put my fist through the monitor. So I'm still figuring out how I'm going to deal with that. I've created a section in my Steam library affectionately titled Chill Out Games, which are games that I know I can't lose at, that I can just go and relax and have my crybaby fit for losing. The last time I did that, I ended up playing a Mahjong game, which helped soothe my loser nerves enough to help me get to sleep at night. And that's it. That's Street Fighter V. I'm digging it. It's a great game. I gotta say, I'm having. I thought it would be a great game to make little videos about, because I can go back and dig out all my competitive replays, and they fit inside of a watchable time frame. I could play a replay, fraps it, and then comment over it. That would have been especially useful for my first several competitive wins, my ranked matches, because they were oddball situations. The first time I ever won a ranked match, I was playing against Rashid, a Rashid player, who was just consistently hitting the mid kick button, not moving, not responding to my attacks. Just like the mid kick button was hit to auto fire, and the person had walked away. I don't know why they would do that, but I beat that person, and it wasn't allowing me to access the replay. And then the next person I beat was somebody who got called away in the middle of a match. They were fighting, and then the I didn't notice this until I watched the replay, but the controller for the opponent definitely went dead, and I was still not doing that great. I was like, what? I got my guard up. You gonna come get me? And the guy was just not moving at all. It's pretty humiliating replays. I've since gotten a little better at the game. Not much, but a little better. I at least know how to play the video game now. So I thought it would have been great to scrape up some of those terrible first few matches, but didn't work out so good. I don't know what the deal is. Fraps doesn't seem to work with Street Fighter V, and neither does my normal open source recording equipment, OBS Studio. Yeah, that didn't seem to work either, so I don't know. I'm holding out hope. I'll figure it out somehow. If that doesn't work, I still got Mugen. I've made 2 Mugen videos by now, which is... Mugen's another thing that I wanted to make videos for a very long time, and I've only just now done it. I made a couple videos, and I have another video featuring Dig Dug as a playable Mugen character as a feature, and that one has not been uploaded yet, but that's coming in the future.
Hey there, guys. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. You like what you hear? Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is the part of the show where we do the Vancast. Now, if you're a new listener, essentially what happens is, through the course of the week or month or the interval of the last recording, sometimes when I'm driving home, if the mood strikes me, I'll whip out the phone and I'll record a short piece. That way I can get something out when it's fresh in my mind. Now, a lot of the Vancasts tend to be a little bit more raw, and it's a good way for me to stay connected. And that way, if I think of something that I want to get out, it doesn't have to sit and then become canned when I try and recreate it, a couple days later when I can finally sit down and record. So I tend to keep these short, but we'll see what happens. Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. It's the Vancast. This is being recorded at 6:36 in the morning on my way into work. It's dark outside. It is freezing cold. And I'm driving through the woods. What a morning. Spent some time last night playing fighting games with Kaiser, good old Retro Kaiser. He recorded a couple games. We played King of Fighters 2002 on Steam, and that went super slow. But he made a video out of that. We had a good time. I think it'll be a fun video. And we also played Guilty Gear Accent Core R+. I think that's the name on Steam. That went better, but there was still some lag. Kaiser's on a different hemisphere, so that's normal when we play video games. At any rate, he made videos out of those two. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch, so if you're not a subscriber to the Retro Kaiser, I recommend the madness of Kaiser's YouTube channel wholeheartedly. Speaking of fighting games, it was the first time I played King of Fighters 2002 since picking up Street Fighter V. I had been playing 2002 a good bit until then. Just studying, trying to get good so that I could play against my old pal. That was our game. That was our series, the King of Fighters series. And that particular game in general, King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match on Steam, I think that is a fantastic package. If you're just trying to get a good party fighting game, I think King of Fighters 2002, it's tough to beat. The newer games, are good, but that particular one has got the hugest roster, a lot of really great characters. It still has that kind of original King of Fighters feel to it. Once we got into King of Fighters 13 or 12 or whatever it is, 13, yeah. Then they changed the art style a little bit, and it's still a good game, but it's not quite the same. It doesn't quite feel like that old King of Fighters feel. So, highly recommend that one. I got it on sale. I don't know what the normal price is, but, whatever. Fighting games and Steam are an interesting thing because if you think of fighting games in the classic sense, right? Go back to Super Nintendo. Sega Genesis, those days. So what were people playing in terms of fighting games? At least at home, it was the classic Mortal Kombat series, 1 through 3, and then there was the Street Fighter 2 games, and then there were a couple of outliers, like there was a series called Clay Fighters. What else was there? And then there was Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo. But by and large, that's what it was. And the way those games were designed, they were party games, so to speak, right? We use the term couch multiplayer now a lot to describe playing local multi-games. But it's no secret, that's just the way it was back in those days. So those games, right, when you stack them up to a modern fighting game, setting aside the mechanics and the graphic differences, there's a clear, change in the way they're developed, which I think is normal with the evolution of video games since that time. Now they have to have a good netcode. Now they have to be able to be played online. And more importantly, now the person who buys the game is probably only going to use one character, or maybe two, for the most part. So if you buy Street Fighter V, and what I'm getting at is avoid a pitfall that I fell into, right? I bought this deluxe edition thinking, you know what, I want to get all the characters. There is no need. There is no need. There really isn't. Unless you're playing, unless you are engaged in local multi on a regular basis, then you don't really need it. And they charge a lot for it, I think, because of that. However, that said, King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match has got the roster size of like a heavy DLC laden game with bonus packs. It's got that kind of roster size, but it still comes in like a single price, put down the money the first time and you're done kind of deal. So I recommend it. Nice smooth mechanics, My pal favors King of Fighters 98, which is a good game, but it's still not quite. I mean, they smoothed it out, the animations out a lot more in the later games, so that's what I prefer. Played that with my fight pad a little bit. Oh, that's right, the fight pads. We'll talk about that some. So I mentioned earlier that I was an arcade stick player, or tried to be an arcade stick player, and then kind of gave up and went back to game pads, and then I bought a fight pad in MAGfest. Here's something I noticed. I have an easier time pulling off the motions with a gamepad, and it certainly feels more natural, especially to do things like the Z motion that you use for like the Tiger uppercut or whatever with Ryu. I find that easier than it is on an arcade stick. But whenever you reach a special move that involves pressing two buttons with your right hand at the same time, that's where I start to check out. I think that's where, when using a fight pad, I think back and it's like, man, maybe it would have been worth it to figure out that arcade stick. This happens a lot in Street Fighter V, where you have where you got one of the special moves where you're using a small portion of your EX bar or whatever. You have to kind of turn your right thumb sideways so that you're reaching halfway across the pad and mash, light punch and medium punch together or what have you, in order to execute the move. And then when you're doing it on an arcade stick, it feels perfectly natural because you just put that middle finger up and you're just hitting both buttons with two fingers, and you can kind of twist and move the way you need to. But that turning the thumb sideways to mash two at once, that's an incredibly unnatural motion, at least for me. And I think I don't want to say it's going to put me at a handicap playing Street Fighter, because I think that's a bit of a pessimistic attitude. But that's certainly a real advantage for arcade stick players. And I remember playing Virtua Fighter 5 with Jerry Terrifying. This was a good number of years ago, but we played that on the PS3 briefly for just one night. And there was an awful lot of that where you had to press three buttons at once. Or it was like, if you think of a PlayStation 3 controller, or any of the PlayStation branded controllers, you got, what are they, like X, circle, and triangle. That's what you'd have to mash together to make something happen. And here again, Jerry at the time mentioned this is kind of made more for an arcade stick because of that. So there's a real reason why it might be worth it. If you're ever thinking about what the difference between arcade sticks and game pads, there's a real advantage. And I think it's worth mentioning because the most practical advantage I could think of prior to this was, well, if you go to the arcade and try and play against somebody in a fighting game, you're going to use an arcade stick. So if you're using an arcade stick at home, you're going to be more used to the motions, which is also true. That's also true, but that doesn't mean that if you're a gamepad player, that when you go to the arcade, you're just going to be impotent. You're right. My old pal Angie is a gamepad player, and when we go to the arcades, he still crushes. He still crushes like a beast. Absolutely untouchable. Unless we're playing Guilty Gear, then I have a fighting shot. Was always just a wee bit better at Guilty Gear. But I have a feeling that's just because he had an apathy towards the series. I think if he studied, he'd crush. He'd crush hard in that game. Alright. I think that's about all I got. Because I've just been thinking about fighting games and whatnot. Fighting games being something I can play for somewhat short periods of time. Okay, I think we're 10 minutes in. We're going to call that a Vancast.
Alright, that was the Vancast. We now shoot us directly over to a quick interview I had with Hemrock. old friend of mine who's written in many times. Been a friend of Tiger Claw Radio for a very, very long time. He went to PAX South recently, and he's going to tell us about it.
All right, we're on with Hemrock. What's going on, man?
Hey.
It's been a long time.
Sure has, man.
So what you been up to?
A lot of life. A little bit of a PAX South.
Yeah, so life and cons.
I've been playing video games too, and
that's cool.
Doing a lot of working,
We were just talking before I hit record about PAX South. We don't necessarily have like a ton of time to record, but you said like a lot went on, or there was a lot to talk about.
Right.
So I guess we'll do like a PAX South bit, probably as soon as we can, like in a couple days.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, just as a preview, PAX was awesome. I don't have an extensive history of going to PAX. This is my third PAX because I've only been going to PAX South, and this is the third PAX South. And for me, it keeps getting better every year. I know, or at least I've heard, it seems that other people who go to the other PAXs, particularly PAX Prime and obviously Boston as well,
right?
That PAX South seems to be looked down upon. Like we don't kind of have our act together. We're kind of like Rogue. We're all brand new. We're also the smallest PAX. I think we're even smaller than the one in Australia, which to me, I see that as a pro, as a benefit.
Yes.
I'm not big for crowds. Although it's funny saying that because PAX is all about big crowds. But hey, it's theoretically a smaller PAX experience, and I'm all on board for that. So much to experience, and like I said, it gets better and better every year, at least for me. And I think part of that is because I'm learning how to enjoy myself more, and I'm learning more about PAX and how to get the most out of it.
Sure. I've noticed that about MAGfest. It's getting bigger every year. And my favorite MAGfest was like 2013.
Cool.
I go to those things and I don't know anybody.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. This was the first PAX that I didn't already have friends going there.
Did you see anybody down there you recognized?
Well, I went with my wife, obviously, so I recognized her because she's gone every year with me, and she likes it. I think what she prefers more than the video games, because PAX is very video game heavy, obviously.
Sure.
But for people who are I've never been to a PAX. PAX also has a huge board game scene. Like there's a lot of tabletop that goes on there, and perhaps people who have never been to PAX before or very video game concentrated or video game focused people might not realize that there's a huge section of PAX that doesn't really deal with video games. It deals with board games and with Dungeons and Dragons and things like Dungeons and Dragons. And so my wife is very much into the board game side of things, and she's thankfully she's content with playing board games with strangers and letting me run around like a child playing video games. So cool. It works out. So obviously she came. The last two times, for the first PAX and the second PAX, that's 2015 and 16, I had a friend from work who would go. However, he kind of became disillusioned with PAX, and he was more into the tabletop thing and didn't really like the video game stuff, so he only went one day this year.
All right, so hang on a second. You got guys who go for the tabletop thing, and the reason why I stop you is because I got a question. Okay. Do they arrange the games ahead of time? Because I love tabletop games, but I just can't bring myself to go up to a stranger and be like, hey man, you want to commit to a 4-hour game of Pathfinder?
Okay, that's a great question, and let me address that. So they do have tabletop tournaments which are set ahead of time, and you have to register for them in person. However, the people that I know that play tabletop, well, I take it back. I do know someone who did enter one of the tournaments, but typically they aren't playing tournaments. What they do is you can actually check out board games. So you bring your driver's license. they have this area with just tons and tons of board games you've never heard of before. And a lot of, maybe not a lot, but there are certain board games that are somewhat RPG centric.
Okay.
And are almost like a Dungeons and Dragons in a box, which can be played more quickly.
Well, like Heroes Quest?
Sure, something like that. And a big one there is Munchkin. So Munchkin would be a great example.
I got you. I'm familiar
And so
with
what
the
they
name.
do is they rent this game, and say there's only 2 of them. What they can do is they can get this red cone, and I can't remember the abbreviation off the top of my head, but it has letters on it. It's basically like, "We need gamers." And then they put that on their table, and there's this huge spread of tables on one side of the convention center, and you can just walk around, and if you see a cone, you can...
So you know exactly where you're welcome then.
Exactly. And
MAGfest
so
has to work on that, because I have no idea. They just have tubs of games, and it's like, it's up to you guys to sort it out.
Yeah, not quite. So it's like every time I went back to check on my wife, she was with another group of people, because she would go and check out the game and put out the cone, and then people would just show up and play. It's kind of a nice way to meet other people. I feel like the atmosphere at PAX is very open, very friendly, and you're quite likely to have something in common, i.e. gaming, so you got a place to start.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it works out better than you would think. However, that being said, I haven't seen a whole lot of like Dungeons and Dragons, like hardcore tabletop going on that people just jump into. I don't know, maybe that does go on, but I haven't quite seen that. It's more of like your board games and more condensed versions of D&D.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been out of the tabletop scene for a while. Like, I was really hardcore into it right around the time 4th edition came out. But I don't know what's popular these days. It seems like I'd be more interested in playing like the straight up board games, especially like the exotic ones you wouldn't find anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be cool, because board games can be expensive, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice to test out board games there.
Right.
They've got a lot to choose from.
Like, what do you mean?
So like I mentioned before, they have multiple tables with stacks, like piles of games. And it might be a game that could cost you, $60, but instead of going out and buying it and then playing it and realizing you don't particularly like it.
Okay, so you're talking about sampling games. That's pretty
exactly
cool.
Right, and I thought that's what you were referring to.
When you said test, in my head I was thinking like playing a prototype game or something. Like, oh, that sounds awesome.
Well, okay, I have to give a caveat. I'm not a huge board gamer, and nor am I an expert at board games at PAX. However, I think they do have prototype games or very new games that are tabletop that you can try out. Because they certainly have prototype video games that developers are making that you can play.
That's cool.
So, and I'm pretty sure they have it on the tabletop side as well. I'm just not 100% sure.
All right. Well, since it sounds like we're kind of going down the PAX rabbit hole anyway, what did you dig into? Because you said you weren't much for the board game side.
Right. Okay. Well, let me just start at the beginning. So, as probably many of the listeners know, PAX is a 3-day event. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I typically, the first 2 times I went, I just went Saturday. And that worked out well for me. However, this was the first time I decided to do both Saturday and Sunday. And my friend who I mentioned earlier decided to go just on Friday, so I kind of missed him this year. But in any case, I went on Saturday. The doors opened at 10 a.m. And I knew that Nintendo Switch was going to be there. And I believe this was one of the first opportunities, if not the first opportunity, for the general public to play the Switch.
Oh, boy.
And I typically do not get very excited about new consoles these days. I really don't. I don't know. I guess I'm just like one of those crotchety old men on my lawn.
You're reaching a certain age.
Yeah, those measly kids, get off my lawn. I'm old. I know better than you. Whatever the new consoles. You kind of develop that attitude. But
yes, indeed.
the Switch really surprised me, and I enjoyed the promo that Nintendo put out, and it was all over YouTube, and it was the talk of the town, and I was like, wow, this is a fantastic idea, and Nintendo continues to surprise me. I think they're one of the most ingenious entertainment companies probably ever, at least on the electronic side of things. Just what I
think they are far inferior to Tiger Electronics, sir. I think if Tiger Electronics were still around today, the world would never be the same.
It would not be the Nintendo 3DS. It would be the Tiger 3DS.
So did you actually get to demo the machine, or did you just get to witness it?
I'm
pushing you along in the fairy tale.
Yes, I know. You're like, hurry up, Himrock. You're just telling the story too slow. Anyway, so I show up an hour early. I'm like, okay, I'll be there an hour early. I'm going to get in line, and I'm going to go straight to the Nintendo Switch booth and get in line. And what happened is, so I get there an hour early, but even getting there an hour early is really not that early.
Oh, boy.
Because they divide you up in these huge lines. And I imagine each line has at least 150, but probably closer to over 200 people in it. So by the time I get in there, I'm in line 5. So there's probably already close to 500 people, if not more, in front of me. Whatever.
Whoa.
But it's fine, I'm enjoying myself. I have a 3DS, so I can play that, and I really kind of get into the exchanging and getting the puzzle pieces, making the 3D puzzles. I don't know. It's just
the street passes, right?
Yeah, the street passes. That was the term I was forgetting and feeling like a horrible Nintendo fan. Not that I'm a great Nintendo fan, but yeah, like the street pass stuff. But anyways, what happened is a bit of a disaster.
Uh-oh.
So what they were supposed to do is when the exhibit hall opens, it's supposed to be an orderly process. I've seen it done, time and time again, is they say exhibit hall's open, and then they let the first line go through. And then they let the second line go through. Just like how you lined up to get into PAX.
I think I see where this is going.
Yeah, so the announcer, of course, has that very ominous voice, and it comes on the overhead, and you're in this cavernous convention center. So it's like echoing in there. It's like 5 minutes till the expo hall opens. And then, before you know it's the expo hall is now open. And everyone's cheering, and then they rush it. People rush the lines, and they cannot stop it. So, just basically everyone just starts running in. So there was no order. So the people who are kind of like the policemen of PAX are called enforcers. And they do a great job, and their job can be difficult, and I have a lot of respect for them. But they either dropped the ball or something happened, and they were getting mad too. They were trying to stop people. They're like, stop.
To be fair, if you're a crowd control man and there's a crowd that's big enough, it's not worth getting trampled.
Right.
Because people will die in those situations.
Yeah.
No joke.
And so I kind of just went with the flow, and I'm going to the Nintendo booth, and I get in line. I basically just, because it's so much confusion, and I wasn't there on Friday, so I didn't know exactly how the lines work, that I just jumped in front of, behind someone essentially.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what line I was in. All I knew was I was at the Nintendo Switch booth, and I was in a line. Well, come to find out, I was in the longest line.
Uh-oh.
I was in the line for Call of the Wild. That's the new Zelda game.
Okay.
And I was hearing people talk, and they were saying that the end of the line is about 3 hours. I was not at the end of the line, but I was probably 3/4 to 2/3 of the way into it. And
that's a long wait. That's a long wait, but it's not impossible. Did you make it?
Well, this is what happened. I'm going to try to cut this short because I know I'm going on and on. But basically, I sit there for 30 minutes. We literally move probably less than 10 feet in 30 minutes.
Oh, God.
And again, this is my first day at PAX. I'm really excited. I'm looking around at all the other stuff that's going on, and people are running by me. And I'm like, I can't do this. I have to go and experience PAX, and I can come back maybe to the Nintendo Switch. So I got out of line. And
I gotcha. I feel you.
I never had an opportunity to get in the line that far ahead again. So what I did later on, which was Sunday, I went back to the Nintendo Switch booth, and it was by a far margin, the busiest booth at PAX. And on the back side of the booth, they have like their own little stage set up. And they've got an MC back there, and they've got this huge crowd, and he's getting the crowd going like crazy, and he's throwing out, Nintendo hats and whatnot, and he's pulling people on the stage to play the Nintendo Switch, and they have a bunch of different games. They have the Mario Kart game. They have, I know people are going to hate me because I can't remember all the games off the top of my head, but they have that one game that's like a boxing game where you like throw out your hand.
Punch Out?
No, it's not Punch Out. It's a new game that's developed just for the Switch.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I think I'm sure it's on the Nintendo website, but whatever. There was that game, and then on the sides they had these cutouts, and it was a cutout of a plane, like the fuselage of a plane, where you could like sit down in plane style seating, and you've got that little backboard that comes down and serves as a table. And they had games that you could play on that because, as you know, the Nintendo Switch can fold out and be a portable console. And I was like, oh, that's neat. And it just so happened those lines were the shortest. But it wasn't quite a line because I see, again, the crowd's going crazy. This whole place is crazy. I finally get a hold of like a Nintendo employee, and I said, hey, where's the line to play that game? And then they just kind of like point at the mob. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. And
thanks,
so
Nintendo.
They're like, just stand around and work your
mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just stand around and work your way up to the stage. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm out there. I probably wait for another half hour to play. I wrote it down here because I didn't want to get it wrong. Look at my
Barbie's Horse Racing for the Game Boy Color.
Close. I played Snipper Clips, and it was out of all the games that I saw there, that was the game I wanted to play the least. But you know what? I didn't care because it was the shortest line, and hey, I got to play the Nintendo Switch.
But you played the Switch. How'd it feel?
Yeah, well, just to continue my story, because this was the amazing part, So I'm there for 30 minutes, which might sound like a long time, but it's really not. So I've only worked my way like halfway to the stage, and this guy, because they're pulling people out of the crowd, and so they pull this one guy out, and they're like, "Where's your friend?" And they're like, he's like, "Oh, I'm just the only guy," because people were kind of pairing up, they would bring two people up at a time. Because Snipper Clips is a co-op game. It's a cooperative co-op game. And he was like, I don't have a friend. I'm just a single. And then they were like, are there any other singles out there? And I immediately raised my hand.
There you go.
And then, they see me first. And they're like, you get up here. And so, so I was like, yes. Clips. I'm like, yes, I get to play a cooperative puzzle game.
That's
so,
awesome,
yeah, so I get to jump up there with that guy. And within the first 5 minutes, the Nintendo Switch breaks. And I'm like, oh, great. It literally just like freezes.
It's just too much party, man. It couldn't handle it.
Yeah, and so we're like, hey, it's not working. And then, one of the Nintendo employees comes by. They try to reset it. They can't get it to work. And they're like, we need to get somebody. And then some guy comes out of the woodwork, and he's like, you guys need to step up. Like, because we were sitting down, remember, in like the fuselage of a plane.
Yeah.
So we awkwardly have to like stand up on stage while this guy like fiddles with the Nintendo Switch. He gets it to work. And then finally we get to sit down and actually enjoy the game. And believe it or not, it was pretty fun. Because like I said before, it was the game I wanted to play the least. And I had a lot of fun. I didn't really know this guy. And we just hit it off. And I'm like, okay, you got to move this way. And I've got to cut your shape because you play as a shape that you can manipulate.
Okay.
And then you can bring the shapes together, and where they overlap, you can cut. You can cut your other player, player two's shape to change it. And you need to do that in order to figure out these puzzles. And so it was a simple idea that was executed well. The gameplay was fun. It was challenging too. You know, you really did have to think. It wasn't gonna just hold your hand the whole time. But it wasn't overly difficult where we got stuck on the third puzzle. I want to say we probably got to like the fourth puzzle by the time they said we were done. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So are you gonna get yourself a copy of Snipperclips when it comes time to get a Switch?
I think the better question is, am I gonna buy a Nintendo Switch?
Ooh.
And I do not think I'm gonna buy it at launch.
Shots fired.
Not because I don't like it. Not because I do think it's a great console. I do want Nintendo to succeed. However, a lot of it comes down to me. One, I already have a huge backlog catalog of games, like games that I bought years ago that I still haven't played. Two, it's going to cost what, $300, and that's just the console. And I imagine the games are probably going to be at least 30 each, probably closer to 40 or 50.
It has a pay internet service too, I'm told.
Yeah, I heard about that. So it's kind of a money thing and a time thing, because if I don't have time to play my backlog of games, when am I going to have, good time to sit down and play the Switch?
That's a good point. And I mean, honestly, historically, when is the launch model ever the best?
Exactly.
You always wait. Maybe that second year system, that's where the bugs are ironed out. The good games are already on the market. And
that's when the Nintendo Switch XL is going to come out. It's going to have a better screen, all this and that. I mean, this is especially true for Nintendo, unfortunately. I mean, as much as I do not want to discourage people from waiting, because I know Nintendo this is a make or break system, in my opinion, for Nintendo.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it right and it fails, they might not be making consoles any longer.
Do you remember when they promised they weren't going to make alternate versions of the 3DS? They promised.
Well, I didn't hear any promises about the Switch, so you very could see, the Nintendo Switch 2.0 or the Nintendo Switch Wii U. But I do have a lot of faith in this system, and if any system can win with Nintendo, I think it's this one. It was really nice to see how the controllers worked, because the controllers can fit around the side of the console, and then it becomes portable. And then not only that, you can pop them off and extend the back of the console. There's like almost like an easel, like an art easel. There's a panel that flips out, so you can lay the Nintendo Switch down, and it looks like a tablet, essentially.
Yeah, I've gathered that from the memes.
And then the controllers, you can turn around on the side, and it becomes an individual controller. So then you've got the two-player action, and it wasn't awkward. I didn't think the controller was awkward. It worked well. It was responsive, and it did what it did in the commercials. So
let me see if I get this right. You used that little sidesy, like half controller that sits on the side.
That was my controller.
I'm curious how that feels, because it doesn't look like much. You said it felt okay?
Yeah, I thought it felt okay. Now, granted, I will tell the audience my hands are probably smaller than most. I don't have like large hands, so I could see, someone with a larger build, feeling kind of awkward.
I got you.
But I never felt the controller awkwardness or it being too small or my hands cramping. But then again, I didn't play the console that long.
Well, that's cool, man. Sounds like you had quite a time.
Oh yeah, and I have plenty more to talk about, because, and again, we can do a PAX episode later. But the Nintendo Switch was not my favorite thing that I saw at PAX.
Oh boy. Oh.
Yeah, there were other things that I enjoyed a bit more.
That sounds awesome. This was the first year we seriously considered heading off to PAX East.
Oh yeah.
I didn't make it, but PAX. I mean, just based on your stories, anybody can tell PAX is a bit more expo oriented than MAGfest is. MAGfest is more like a party. So the whole tech side, of there actually being technology shown off, I think would be neat. I've never really experienced that before.
It's a lot of fun. It really is. And even if you're not into the whole big show, there's so many other things that you can do. You could be part of PAX and not even participate in the show floor and still have fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up MAGfest, because MAGfest was actually represented there. So at PAX, they have smaller rooms, like little conference rooms, that are sponsored occasionally by certain organizations or certain companies. And they had a MAGfest sponsored room. It was the Jam Space. It was MAGfest Jam Space.
Oh, that's cool.
And I've never been to a MAGfest. I still want to. I know I say that every single year. Unfortunately, it's quite a ways away from me, but I'm still interested in it. And they had this Jam Space, and it's like what I've heard at not PAX, but what I've heard about MAGfest is that they have instruments out. They've got like a stage, and you can just go up and play.
Yeah, that's true. That happens.
And that's what they had at PAX. They had their own room, their own stage. And to be honest, I wasn't really going to go there, and I wasn't really interested in that. It's not my thing. But right as I was about to leave, this was within the last 2 hours on Sunday, right before my wife was going to pick me up, actually, because she only went on Saturday. And I just happened to be walking by that room, and I hear someone playing the ocarina, and I was like, what? And I go in, and I don't know if you've heard of this guy. This guy is amazing. His name is David Eric Ramos. I believe he's a native to San Antonio, and he was playing the ocarina, and he wasn't just like fiddling around playing Zelda tunes. He was like playing the ocarina, and it was amazing. And I was just going to stick my head in just to kind of see what was going on, and I ended up sitting down probably for close to an hour listening to this guy play. And that was probably the biggest surprise at PAX that I enjoyed the most.
That's cool, man.
That's the type of thing at PAX is you can't even like map it out. Sometimes it just happens. And it can be a lot of fun. Unexpected fun.
That's cool, man. Well, we are about 30 minutes into our 10-minute spot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap it up and hope I don't get yelled at. Appreciate you. You got more?
Do you have some time for some questions, like real quick?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to deal with PAX.
Yeah, what do you got?
It relates to your video.
That's right. You mentioned that, didn't you, before we got on the air?
You put out a video this morning or yesterday evening, and it was talking about your computer build. And so my first question, which I guess relates to me, are you sure the hard drive I sent you was 300 gigabytes? I thought I sent you a larger hard drive.
I have it right here. I think it's
300?
I think it's printed right on it. I think it's larger than that, but not by a lot. Stand by.
Okay, I thought I sent you a 500, but it could have been a 300.
It is a 250 gigabyte hard drive.
Okay, well, never mind. I'm sorry. For some reason, in my head, I was like, oh, I sent him a 500 gigabyte. I guess I did.
But, I mean, for a Linux machine, that's plenty big.
Sure.
How big does it have to be to run YouTube? And
yeah,
you know?
No, I understand, yeah. Also, second question here. You mentioned that you're having a mini ITX build. You already have a...
Mini ATX.
ATX.
ITX is the really small one. So
okay,
not quite going that hardcore.
I got you. Okay. Well, in any case, since you've already bought the mini ATX motherboard, are you going to use a mini ATX cover?
Case?
Case, yes.
Absolutely.
You are,
absolutely.
okay.
Because, if I use the standard, like, mid-range ATX case, it's not a micro ATX computer. The point is to make it small. I'm trying to consoleize this thing. I bought a remote control. It's not going to be at a desk. It's going to be, like, connected to a TV, like in my bedroom.
Sure. No, I think that's a great idea. One thing I want to warn you, because right now I'm running my mini ITX machine, and one of the disappointments I've had, probably the biggest regret, is it's very difficult, next to impossible, for me to fit a CD-ROM drive in it. And so it doesn't have a CD-ROM drive. That's the one thing I really don't like about it. So I don't know if you've already computed that into your build or what you had in mind.
How exactly do you mean? Because I look at the micro ATX cases, and they more often than not, they come with one solid 5 1/4 inch bay.
Yes.
Not 3 like mine, but just one.
So again, mine is a mini ITX, so I believe it's a little bit smaller. But even with that said, I'm running a Coolmaster Elite 130. That's the size of my case. It's a very small, compact case. I like the case, and it comes highly recommended on the interwebs. And it does have a bay for a CD-ROM.
All right.
However, the cable management is nigh impossible to handle sometimes because I've got this mini motherboard. I've got to squeeze a graphics card in there. That takes up probably a fourth of the space. I've got 3 hard drives in there.
How about wireless?
Wireless is built into my motherboard.
Yeah, see, not for me. So I have to add a wireless card.
Yeah, so that's even more space. And then since it's so small, one of the problems I was having was heating. It wasn't overheating yet, but
are you overclocking?
No, I'm not overclocking. It doesn't have any room. Like I had a fan in there, but it just spins around hot air.
There's no air flowing through it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I decided it was a little bit of an overkill, but I decided to water cool it. And there was very few water coolers.
There's no way I'm water cooling this machine.
Okay, there was very few that would fit, and so I did get one to fit, but it still takes up so much room. So basically, I used that bay that would have the CD-ROM drive in it to store all my cables, because that's the only place they fit. Otherwise, the case doesn't close.
I gotcha.
And so I've been rethinking this build, because originally I was going to do something like you mentioned. I was going to put this next to my main television. But it hasn't moved since I built it, and I can't use CDs on it.
That's funny. I remember you telling me about this computer in the past.
Go ahead.
So the only thing I can fire back with your space issue is, number one, my computer is halfway between yours and a standard computer. Mm-hmm. It does have a little more space. Secondly, I'm adding the optical disk drive afterwards. So if it doesn't fit, I'll know it beforehand, and, if that's the case, whatevs, Beyond that, I don't know. I was planning on going stock cooling because I'm not overclocking, but then it'd have to have a semi-decent airflow.
What type of processor are you going to use?
I got it here. Hang on a second. It's the same one I'm using for my standard computer, the very same one. This is how this thing started. Not an Intel. AMD runs a little bit hotter.
Yeah.
The 860K X4.
Yeah, I'm not particularly familiar with that side of the processing world because I'm more of an Intel guy. Because I was thinking, man, if you're running like an i3, you won't have cooling problems.
You and everybody else. There aren't very many AMD people out there.
Yeah, but when you get to the higher processors, running like an i7, that's when I'm like, well, that's probably going to put off some more heat. And I'm sure if you do the equivalent on the other side, you're really going to be putting off heat.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Let me just float this your way. I want you to really think about this. This processor was $50.
Awesome.
All right.
I'm all about budget computing, budget gaming. That's great.
So it was the first part of the new machine, and the reason why I started building a new machine was just like, I had this hard drive that you sent me, and I saw this processor, which is the same one I'm running here, so I see how it performs, at least when it's properly cooled. $50. So I'm basically rebuilding the same computer over again with smaller parts.
Nice. I wish you had told me about this like 7 or 8 months ago when I was building mine, because I had an extra cooler because I switched it out for the water thing.
I don't have a cooler. But do you still have it hanging around?
No, see, I sold it. That's the thing.
That's all right. I don't know if I was building this or not then.
Yeah, no. I I think this was shortly after you built the computer that you're using right now, because that's what inspired me to build this one.
The Panzer?
Yeah.
Ah, man, that was great times.
Aren't you still using the Panzer?
Yeah, it's running right now.
Awesome.
Runs very well.
Awesome.
Unless I'm trying to play Street Fighter V on that weird holiday level that for some reason doesn't run very well.
Huh.
They charged $20 for this holiday DLC pack, and I got a level that doesn't run. Awesome, Capcom. GG, mates.
No. Quick question: did you find that processor online, or did you buy it at a brick and mortar store?
I got it online. It was from somebody who was collecting parts for a machine, and then decided to pull out and buy pre-built. So he returned all his parts, and except for the processor, he couldn't return the processor because it had been mounted previously.
Oh, so it's like an eBay thing?
It was an eBay thing.
Okay,
yeah.
that's
so
cool.
It has the stock cooler and everything. The only thing it doesn't have is the joint not joint compound. The thermal compound that comes on it.
Oh yeah, that's super cheap.
Yeah, it's like $8.
And actually, it's probably a blessing in disguise, because you can buy better thermal paste online for just a few dollars.
Yeah, that's cool. I was really worried about. Here's the thing. When you're talking about space issues, that is stopping me from buying an external cooler. Because I could buy a cooler for what, $20 if it's air cooled?
Oh yeah. Those coolers are cheap.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to fit in my machine.
You can buy small ones though, like very form fitting. I can't think of the word.
Well, here's the thing. When I built the Panzer, I had that issue where the cooler that mounts to the side of the heatsink on the CPU cooler, it hung out over the RAM slots, which sucked. But it wasn't such a big deal because this computer has 4 RAM slots. I'm only using 2 of them. So it hangs out over one, and it's an empty slot anyway, so it's not the worst thing in the world. This computer that I'm building, it's only got 2 RAM slots. They're both getting used.
Mm-hmm.
If I pony up for a cooler and it hangs out over that slot, that cooler's not going in the machine. So suddenly the space issue becomes a little bit more of a thing. And I'm not quite sure how to work that, because I couldn't find, okay, well, this one's going to stick out this many millimeters, and you can measure and have it work out. I don't know. So I think what I'm going to have to do is just see if I can get one, and then just take a look at it when it shows up in the mail and risk it.
They do give measurements of those coolers, and then what's even better is going on YouTube and typing the name in and seeing someone actually build with it. And then you can better gauge, is this going to mess up my build or not? And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find my PC part picker page for my older build of what I'm currently using, the one without the liquid cooler. And because that cooler, I think, would be right up your alley. And it was $30 new, but you can probably get it for less than 20 used.
$30 is doable for a cooler.
Yeah, and
air
it was
cooling
very nice.
In general, I think is very reasonable priced.
Yeah.
I think I'd have a hard time ponying up $100 for a cooling solution, unless I was planning to overclock hardcore.
Sure, and it's killing me that I can't find that. Yeah, if I come across it, I'll just have to send it your way. But it was a very nice, low profile. That's the term I was looking for.
I got you.
Cooler. And it worked on my mini ITX. I'm sure.
Is your ITX computer low profile parts?
More or less.
Okay. So, but I mean, like if you were to go put an expansion card on that computer, assuming that you had a slot for it, would you use the smaller low profile bracket?
Yeah. Like my
See that?
Like
see, mine's not going to use that.
Card is low profile.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, those computers are slick if you can get one together. A little guy like that, especially if you like to travel with it. But whew, I feel you now on your troubles getting it together.
Hey, to bring it full circle, you can bring your PC to PAX, and it would be a great one to bring. It's so small.
Yeah, I would enjoy that very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be kept because I've already done that. So.
42 minutes. I think we did all right. I think I can explain this one away and I'll be fine.
Okay,
Hemlock,
sorry
buddy,
about that, man.
It's good to talk to you again, man. It's been a long time.
Likewise.
I hope
Likewise,
you're doing
it's a
good in your
pleasure.
life, man. All right, brother. I'm out of here.
All right, take it easy, man. Bye.
Alrighty. So now, in the interest of time, typically at this point in the show, I do the fail bag, where I read your questions or comments or anything you have that you, if you want to interact with the show, you can leave a comment pretty much any place you can get this. And right now, that's going to be the YouTube channel. So let's go through this somewhat quickly so that I can wrap the show and call it a week, since we're 1 hour and 5 minutes in and I'm a week late getting this out. There was a video that I made regarding the return of Tiger Claw Radio, and on it there were several comments, so we'll start with those. Gaming Beast 82 says, "It's good that you're active, broski. TCR and TCTV are awesome. I can't wait for more. Do it in your own time." Thanks, man. It's always nice to hear those kinds of comments, especially when it comes to the problematic schedule of TCR. Trying to keep things weekly is just absolutely impossible. So we'll try bi-weekly or monthly and do the best we can. Dumez says, "I love it when my podcasts are on YouTube. It saves me from having to go to a site all over all the time to find them." I'm glad, because that will make this a heck of a lot easier for me to release, to just drop it on YouTube. And then I can also maybe drop the MP3 on Podomatic, but then I don't feel the need to cycle that quite as hard or archive it or whatnot. I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping this will be easier. Retro Kaiser says, "Woo!" There's a lot of O's here. Awesome. Alex Swingle says, "Enjoy your safe space, Broham. Your punk-esque haircut and facial expressions still get me in stitches to this day. It's glorious." Thanks much, man. I have a feeling I'm being made fun of in that comment a little bit, but always nice. Here's one that I wasn't expecting. Wes Gross Customs left a message. Now, if you're not familiar with Wes Gross, he ran a YouTube channel for a long time. He still has a YouTube channel, but he used to make alterations to consoles, and he would film it and then post it on his channel in like super speed. So you could see in like 3 minutes somebody sanding down a Genesis and repainting it, and so on and so forth. I'm looking at his channel now, and all the old content is gone, and I'm not sure what happened, but it looks like he's got a new show in the works, which could be awesome. Wes Gross Customs, an old staple of YouTube. Good guy. He writes, "Hey bro, I miss you. Add me on FB, Wesley Gross. You said you make chiptunes? I'm making a new show and I need some background music." I left a comment here on YouTube, but I started with Famitracker, and I don't make the best chiptunes in the world, but I do enjoy it, and I have 3 albums that I made and released, and those are released as royalty-free music. So you're certainly able to use whatever of that you want. I want to make more chiptunes, but I don't know, just haven't worked that in the schedule. But that's awesome, man. It's cool to hear from you. Wes sent me a couple of screwdrivers like 3 years ago, where he was taking flathead screwdrivers and then taking a Dremel toolkit and reaming out in the middle, so you could then use it on the security screws on Nintendo games. And he sent me a couple of those way back in the day. So that was cool. I still have those, and I never forgot that. Good times, man. Death Adder writes, "I don't even know what the fuck a computer game is, and I've been a loyal fan for years. If you ever leave the internet, I swear to ghosts." And then he says, "Watching this the next day, I think I meant to say was uploading TCR to YouTube sounds like a good idea, and I like your hair. I hear that the subscriber loss has some sort of jacked up thing with YouTube, but I doubt it's all on you." Kind words, man. Here's what I think was going on with the subscriber loss, Death Adder.
There are big name YouTubers who are having losses in large numbers. I think my issue is completely separate from all of that. I think I had a big break in 2010. And I've talked about this many times, but I was on RetroWare TV as a peripheral lineup of shows. I got dropped, and then I went inactive. So when I was on that website, I had more than 1,500 subs. I had closer to 1,700, but not quite over that threshold. It was like 16.5 or something like that. Over that time, most of those people, human beings, either stopped watching YouTube or moved on from my channel. So I think there's a legit. I think if my subscriber count was accurate, it would be more like a couple hundred tops. On top of that, there was a period where I was releasing only MS-DOS related videos, and I got a few subscribers during that time. And I think those people have since either left or don't watch or whatever. So it is what it is. I get like 30 to 50 views per video, and that's it. And that's enough to keep me doing what I do. Since the videos I make at this point are pretty low effort, I'm pretty much able to just have fun and do what I like to do. And that's, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It always stings a little bit when I put out a video and I see the subscriber count has gone down a little bit, and it's happened pretty consistently. But it is what it is. I said it was like my 200 subscriber count video. I said that at that point, if I made a video, I knew it would be watched by someone, and that's all I ever wanted. And now I would say that's still true. So you know what? Regardless of what those numbers are, whenever I do something with TCR, all you guys show up. So it's like, what else could I ask for, really? The King of Reyes 3 says, I can't wait for TCR. And that's a great comment, because I don't know who this guy is. So thanks a lot for the kind words, man. That's really awesome. It's awesome to read a comment from somebody who's not like, oh, I clearly know who this guy is. He's been commenting for years. So much appreciated. Vintage Video Game Geek, one of my oldest friends on the YouTubins, writes, subbed for life, brah. Brofist real hard, man. By the way, speaking of subbed for life, how's your channel going, bro? You were mentioned making a push to return to the YouTubins. I've seen some. Let's see. He did a video with Ricky and Aaron. I guess the Ricky one's pretty new. That's only 2 weeks ago. The guys from Retro Liberty. That's something else I wanted to touch on. Their show disappeared altogether, and they took it all down. And you can see those guys on Vintage's website. They were really big, and a lot of people liked them. And I gotta say, I did as well. They did all right. I mean, I'm typically not big into the watching people go shopping for deals, but they did it pretty well. It's just kind of sad to see them go. So maybe get some insight as to what happened over on Vintage Video Game Geek's not website, but YouTube channel. All right. So thanks, boys and girls, for the YouTube comments. That leaves classically the MP3 versions of the show are posted on tigerclawtv.com and thenextround.net. And over on my website, I've got a couple of comments. Death Adder, who also commented on YouTube, says, I came over to the official Tiger Claw website because I know that a critical failure return is not far off, and a man should never come back to an empty fail bag. But leave it to the legend, Balzac to have outdone me once again. You've mentioned a trip to Disney World with the family, so enough of this lame video game stuff. Excluding Space Mountain, obviously, what is your favorite Disney World ride? Go. Excluding Space Mountain. Oh, man. Okay, Death Adder. There was a tiny roller coaster in the middle of the Epcot Center, and it was called Maelstrom.
and it was located in the World Showcase in the Norway pavilion. Now, Maelstrom closed a couple of years ago, and they replaced it with a Frozen-related ride. But there was something about Maelstrom that I always enjoyed. It was chilled out, and it was in the middle of just like walking around looking at the World Showcase pavilions. Always liked that one. Don't know if I would call that my favorite, but I remember joking for many years about how it was the most hardcore ride, because it was really not. It was really just a chilled out little roller coaster. But I liked that one. Space Mountain was big early on, but I reached a point after the second or third time I went where they had cleaned the rails for Space Mountain, and my wife and I rode it, and we were like, you know what, I think that's the last time we're going to ride this ride. And we never rode it again. I know I'm going to have to get back on it when my son is ready for roller coasters, and he's just about that age. Not quite yet, but just about. He's 7 now. We're also big fans of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. That's a good roller coaster. And let's see, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Space Mountain is good. I rode, what is it now? The one in MGM, or I guess they call it Disney's Hollywood Studios now, where they have the Tower of Terror. That's it. I rode that once. That was pretty cool. I don't think I could do it again, but I enjoyed that. Lots of good rides down there. Let's see. All right, so I've got to go to work in just a couple of minutes, and this is a 5 paragraph letter from Balzac, known as Ksleb 208. Let's see if we can power through it. He writes, and he posted this back in September, so I do feel obliged to read it. He writes, March of 2010 was when you appeared for the third time on G&DB Radio. That was also the same podcast you met Jerry for the first time. Holy crap, that was 7 years ago. I also agree with you that that the era of mid-2000s to late 2011 was the golden era, not only for Tiger Claw Radio, but also for the Mondo Coolcast. Reason for this is because you guys cranked out some golden podcasting during that time, which I still find hilarious. One example, specifically with TCR, was the Monster Cast you released in November 2010. That still, as of today, is the greatest podcast episode I've ever listened to, in my opinion. One part of that episode that stands out was the 2.5-hour segment you did with Jerry. That legendary segment included a story about mistaking dead babies for Crown Royal. I've probably listened to the entire Monster Cast about 10 times, but I have not heard it in its entirety for years. I'll probably give it another listen if I go on a long road trip someday. I'm also in agreement with seeing mobile gaming as a legitimate portable gaming option instead of a Nintendo or Sony platform. I play all my mobile games on an Android tablet, though instead of my Android phone. Reason for this is because the screen on the phone is too small for me. Yeah, I agree. However, even though games such as Plants vs. Zombies and Angry Birds can be fun for a bit, I cannot play those games for more than 10 minutes. I would recommend you the Square Enix games as something to try. Specifically, The World Ends With You and Dragon Quest VIII. Those are two of the best mobile games I played. And even though each one is $20 a piece, they are so worth it. If that's a legit Dragon Quest VIII, that might be worth $20 to have it on my phone. This is me interrupting the letter, by the way. While we're on the subject of Dragon Quest mobily, I did get Dragon Quest VII, or Dragon Warrior 7, I guess it was called, on an ISO, running on a PS1 emulator on my phone. Don't know if you quite call that a mobile game, but I did get that running. Played it a little while. Back to the letter. He says, I can confirm I'm now going to jump right into the 8th console generation with the PS4 Pro in November. I placed my pre-order the day it was announced, and I can't wait for Final Fantasy 15 in November, Last Guardian in December, Yakuza 0 in January, and Persona 5 in February. So I've already have a game a month to look forward to once I get the console. Finally, ending with this question, opinion on the Spoony one of present. Asking since I remember that Spoony also has a golden era that was so long ago. Sadly, he became a washed-out internet celebrity, in my opinion, with only producing one video review a year for the past 3 years. Everything else that gets cranked out by him are now just half-assed Let's Plays that are painfully boring to watch. Sorry this comment is a bit long, but hey, I'm able to save your comeback episode after taking a hiatus. Well, I hope to hear more episodes in the future. Keep up the good work. Balzac, my dear friend, thanks so much for the long letter. 6:02 in the morning. Okay, so I got a few more minutes. I got enough time to comment on this, and then we'll call it an episode. Let's start at the beginning. The Monster Cast. This is the first episode on YouTube, so let me explain what the Monster Cast is. I had this idea to make a single episode that was really long, so I made one episode of Tiger Claw Radio that was about 8 hours long. Between 6 to 8 hours, I honestly can't remember how long I did it. But rather than just do a marathon session, I broke it up, and I did like 6 different sessions with people I really liked. Jerry was on it. Derek Alexander was on it, although I really botched that segment. Who else was on it? Hemrock was on it. Carl, who ran Scenic 7 PR at the time, he was on it. And I would just record these sessions one at a time, and then I strung them together and made a really long podcast. It was something I only did once, and when I uploaded it, it immediately broke my Podomatic account because of bandwidth. I always wanted to do a second one, always, but I just never got a second one off the ground. To this day, looking back, I don't know how I managed to complete the first one, but that is available, and at one point, I'll do some sort of quick video on YouTube that was like, hey, this is a thing, this is what happened, go check it out, just to kind of release it to the YouTube audience. I've gone back to listen to that a couple times as well. Jerry's segment was the opening segment. Jerry and I talked for what I seem to remember being about 3 hours. And yeah, he told... Jerry's a guy who can tell a story like nobody else. He's had some stuff happen to him that certainly is entertaining to listen to. And I think he definitely brought his A game that day. So that alone makes it worth it. Let's see. When you left this comment, you were talking about buying the PS4 Pro. All these dates that you listed have passed. November, December, February. How is that going for you, man? Did you get the PS4? Did you get all these games? What? Give us some feedback, brother. Spoonie 1. What do I think of Spoonie 1 at present day? I don't know what he's doing present day. I liked Spoonie 1, but I watched all his content after the fact. I watched his what's the series of games that he covered? A series of games I really liked. I want to say Unreal, but that's not it. Way before Unreal. It's not coming to me now. It's like old MS-DOS games. Now it's the problem because I can't think of what they are. Not Unreal. Started with a U. They're gone. I can't remember what they are. Ultima. The Ultima games. Unreal. Jeez Louise. He did an extensive cover of the Ultima series in a way that only a true MS-DOS gamer could do, with his Spoonie shtick sprinkled in. And I think that was his masterpiece as far as I was concerned. I saw some of his other stuff. He did some pretty cool things. I don't know what happened with him. I mean, he's a human being, so I wish him the best. But I wasn't as heartbroken when things kind of fell apart for his show as other people were. I think there was a lot of stuff that he made that people enjoyed that I never got around to seeing. I know he was on That Guy with the Glasses and then left or was ejected, and I don't think I followed him after that happened. But again, this is we're talking about a real person who exists. So on those grounds, I hope he's doing all right in his life. Did we cover everything? He talked about a little bit about mobile gaming. For that, I can say I bounced around with mobile gaming. I'm playing SimCity Build It right now, which is pretty fun because my wife plays it, so we get to play together. But usually when I'm mobile gaming, the whole time I'm just like, man, I wish I was at my computer playing a real game. SimCity Build It's not a bad game, but the whole time I'm playing, I'm like, man, City Skylines is so much better. I wish I was at home playing City Skylines. All right, guys, hour and 24 minutes in, and I really need to get ready for work. This is Tiger Claw Radio, episode, I can't remember the number, the premiere episode on YouTube after 8 years of doing this. I really hope you guys will join me the next time. I'm going to try and do one of these. I don't know what kind of schedule I'm going to fall into. I'm shooting for monthly right now so I can get the show off the ground. Also, check out the description to find some sort of MP3 downloadable version. Not sure how I'm going to work this, but I know it's not feasible to sit with YouTube open for an hour and a half for everybody. So I'm going to try and put together some sort of MP3 option for you. I think that's it. I'm going to skip doing the studio outro so I can just get this completed. But thanks, guys. Thanks so much for everybody who's left a comment asking where TCR is. Big thanks to you guys, especially Hemrock and Vintage Video Game Geek, and those of you who all left comments on the YouTube channels. You guys are all awesome, and that's the reason why there's another TCR out right now. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.